Hey, John, we have a special guest this week to talk about our top 10 PS1 games of all time according to the votes. And good God, there were so many votes this week. Welcome, Ash, to the reveal of these top 10 games. We wanted to have you on for the Super Nintendo. You had requested as much, but unfortunately, the timing didn't work out.
Right.
However, you have a pretty solid track record in that your order for the Super Nintendo was completely wrong. However, the games you chose were all correct.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So that was,
which is when you told me that, I was like, well, that's actually pretty cool. I don't know if I'll repeat that today. I feel like the PlayStation's a little bit harder to predict. We were talking earlier before recording about how there's so many franchises on PlayStation versus Super Nintendo with games like, Final Fantasy, Resident Evil, Crash, Spyro, all of which have like 3 different games or more on the same console. So I think it's going to be a little bit trickier this time around. But I'm glad to finally be here. I've been wanting to do one of these for a while, and I'll be back for some more in the future. But I'm glad to finally be here.
yeah, we're going to try to start rotating in some of the other crew members once for consoles they're actually interested in. Not everybody's going to be into every console. But I like to have a breadth of knowledge of most consoles to just get that idea in there. And honestly, that started with the PS1. The PS1 was my sort of gateway into broader gaming. Like I've been playing since the NES, but it's with the PS1 that I started getting into gaming magazines. And I think it was really pushed forward by the official PlayStation magazine, which always came each month with a demo disc. And boy, that was wonderful.
I remember that. Yeah, OPM. I used to subscribe to that. Horrible when you say it too fast. OPM, like that doesn't sound great. but no, I remember those demo discs, and yeah, those were. I miss the days of like print magazines with demo discs. Those were so fun.
Yeah,
you quite often hear people say that this is a hard generation to return to, and I think they're just playing the wrong things because so many PS1 games still hold up remarkably well. And there's so many games that are pioneering what 3D even were at this point. And like Ash was just saying, a lot of them did it multiple times. Like they'd revolutionize the industry and then have another sequel, another sequel. It's so different to what we have today where you wait like 6 years between a game. They're just pumping these things out at an incredible rate. And yeah, so many of them are still just so fun to play to this very day.
Yeah.
Well, and we're also at the point in the indie scene now where we're starting to see indie games kind of intentionally tap into that early 3D era of like PS1 and N64 style visuals. So it's I love that other people are seeing the value in this era of gaming now too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're seeing it a lot now. It's funny to see the evolution of indie gaming sort of mirror the evolution of actual the console gaming, because we had NES style for a long time. Then it was Super Nintendo, and we're finally getting into that PS1 era. And there's some I think after that it's just a matter of style choice, because there's always been PS2 era type games as well for the indie scene. So I think the aesthetics wise, it sort of ends with PS1 this generation.
There's a lot of beauty in those sort of limited poly, just colorful models. Like when you look at Mega Man Legends, I think that's still one of the best looking games just ever. Regardless of the era, it's just so pretty, and I love just seeing more games like that.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorites. But yeah, this is going to be a tricky one. I guarantee you guys are you know of all the games in the top 10, obviously. Order though, and which ones actually made the top 10? Good luck. But some stats before we get into this. We had the most votes by far, 765 votes.
Okay.
Wow. All right.
So many votes. I was literally counting these down to the wire to make sure we were all set to go. And amongst all those votes, 426 different games for the PlayStation 1 were mentioned.
Yikes.
This thing blew out pretty much every other console without any issue whatsoever. Doubled the Saturn, which makes sense to me. Doubled the Super Nintendo.
That's surprising.
That surprises me a lot.
I guess there's so many more games to say though.
Yeah. There's a lot of I could feel nostalgia picks in here because there were some of those Disney games that were in this one, like that you could sort of see, and there's some Looney Tunes games in here. Some people went for the Japanese only ones. There's got stuff from the beginnings of FromSoft with Kingsfield and whatnot.
Wow. Okay.
There's just such a wide range of games here, and I'm picking and choosing which ones I say. Like, I don't think Kingsfield. Anybody expects Kingsfield to be in the top 10, for example.
Just scribbling off my prediction there.
Yeah.
So, it really comes down to what did make the top 10. So let's get started. So, Ash, John, what is the number 10 game for the PlayStation 1?
Man. Out of like 700 plus.
Yeah, I was gonna say a pretty iconic one, but I think that's, if it's on the list, it'll be further down. This one's iconic too, but I think a lesser caliber. Crash Team Racing at number 10.
All right. I'm gonna take a shot in the dark here and say Tekken 3.
Ooh, that's
both good guesses.
Yeah.
Both are wrong.
Okay.
Number 10 with 962 votes. Xenogears.
Oh,
wow. Okay.
I think that makes sense. There's very popular RPGs on the PlayStation. Xenogears is one of the more niche ones. It's arguable like which is better, but I think that sort of placement makes sense for Xenogears, considering what else there is to compete with.
It is the most popular of the niche, I'd say. There's a lot of RPGs on this system, and they did get some representation, but Xenogears, I think, has broken through thanks to this Xenosaga, Xenoblade.
Yes.
That makes me think that one of our favorite games, yours and mine, Derrick, sadly did not make the top 10. We'll see. But if Xenogears is the one that broke through, I think there's another more niche one that did not, and that makes me sad.
There's still time for Parasite Eve 2, though.
Totally can make it. No, Xenogears was formula. I was there at ground zero. Did both of you play as it came out?
No, it didn't even come to Europe. So I
oh my gosh, that's right. Wait, PS1 was like super popular. This was when we
started getting Square Enix games. This is when we got Final Fantasy for the first time with 7. But no Xenogears. I played that after playing Xenoblade on the Wii. I went back and imported the PS1 version. And I imported a PS1 because Symphony of the Night was way cheaper in America. And so I already had a physical PS1, and so I went to get Xenogears as well. But it's fantastic. I'm really glad it made it.
That art style, I mean, it's my first time experiencing a lot of the tropes of RPGs. Like nowadays, like you can sort of see that, but I played the demo and it goes up to the end of the sort of the prologue of Xenogears, and it just blew me away. And finally getting into it, it's like, this is like, I'd already became a fan of RPGs on the system thanks to Final Fantasy VII, but this felt like adult, much more so than. It did.
Yeah, I mean, and talk about an absolutely bonkers story with an unfortunately botched localization that made it, even more
pretty
unintelligible than maybe already was, but in that era. But one of my favorites is still "My father, you mean my dad?" Like that's like my favorite from that game. Amazing soundtrack, cool battle system. I love the pixel, like the art style with like the 2D pixel characters.
I always love pixel characters with a rotatable 3D background. That's
always that was wild. You can actually jump in the overworld, I believe. The fact that you could go around in the mechs, and that art style is sort of aped and sort of modernized thanks to that Star Ocean remake that came out just I think it was last year or the year before.
Last year maybe.
I think it was late 2 years ago. I think it was late 2022 maybe, or 2023.
23. I don't know, but either way, that gives me hope for Xenogears remake in this style. But either way, we'll see if that actually happens. I'm happy that it made it there, but that's number 10. So,
jeez,
guys, what got number 9?
This is a very popular one, but I don't know if its reputation is still held the best. But Tomb Raider 2, I think it's aged very well, but if you've come back to it after a long time, I think those controls are going to feel weird at first.
I'm going to say actually a game that's very similar in that it's both a 2 and a game that has controls that are hard to go back to, but it's a different game, and that is Resident Evil 2.
Ooh.
You are both Incorrect.
Okay. All right.
As soon as you heard both, you probably knew that.
Yeah.
Honestly, John, just to dash your hopes here right now, I am shocked how poorly Tomb Raider 2 did.
That is shocking.
Whoa.
Does that go for all of Tomb Raider or just Tomb Raider 2?
No, just well, one of the games in the Tomb Raider series did well, but Tomb Raider 2 was not it.
That is shocking.
Wow.
That's like the best one.
That's why I was shocked.
Yeah.
It just did not even crack the top 50.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah.
What? Wow.
I cannot believe that it didn't get that high. It feels wrong. Let me double check here.
People made a mistake. They said they
for comparison, it got 56 points.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's so.
And
wow.
it got a re-release not long ago either, so I thought it would be in the consciousness.
I don't know what it is that it didn't break through.
Yeah, Caitlin's right. It'll make it onto the Engage top 10.
We're not doing Engage. Unless you include that in the mobile list when we do that. You can do that. You can,
I think that
include the Engage.
Yeah.
Anyway, what actually is number 9 with 1,081 points, Ape Escape.
Nice.
Oh.
Nice.
Okay, nice.
This what's really cool about Ape Escape is it was the pioneer for the DualShock. And unlike every other game which thought like this will be the camera, it decided to use the right stick for actual like extension of just gameplay, being able to do different things and feel like you're sort of swinging a net with it. We don't see that very often. Like Metal Gear Rising did it, but otherwise so few games use the right stick for anything other than a camera. And as like the defining DualShock game, that was just a really interesting thing to see. But then on, most games just use it for a camera as well, but it was still super cool.
And Caitlin already knows this in our live audience chat, but I have to say this is not a PS1 game I played back in the day, and I still have not played an Ape Escape game to this day. I know I'm missing out for sure. Caitlin has already told me that the original Ape Escape is playable on PS5 and has told me to go play it, and I'm going to at some point. It is on my list. I've heard nothing but awesome things about these games, so I'm not surprised it made the top 10.
Even without its gimmick, it is still a very solid platformer with a lot of charm.
You know me, I love me some platformers. So
and I was very fortunate in that when I came to the PS1, the DualShock was just being bundled with the PS1.
Yeah.
So I had a DualShock right off the bat. I could check out the Ape Escape demo that came. Again, demos really are the gateway to me trying out a bunch of different games on this system, and fell in love with it. Got it. Just it's still one of my favorites.
Yeah.
It is a top tier one, and my heart melted when we got that Ape Escape level in Astrobot. I was like, yes, bring this back.
Yeah.
It is.
Give it to Team Asobi. Give us a new Ape Escape.
It is just one of the coolest platformers ever, though. There's nothing else like Ape Escape, and there still isn't today. All of them are great. I think PS2 should hopefully have 3 on the list, but this is absolutely one of the best on PS1.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And fittingly, we just got word that the Ape Escape mode is coming to the Metal Gear Solid 3
Snake
Delta.
versus Monkey.
So cool. Yeah.
That's
awesome.
So weird. Well, what got number 8? And I'll just go ahead and give the points right now. It only was 26 points ahead of Ape Escape.
Ooh.
I want to say Ridge Racer Type 4, or whatever format we're going with for that title.
I'll say another platform. I'm going to say Spyro 2.
Ash, you are close. It's Spyro the Dragon.
Okay.
This is the problem that we're going to fall into, because I feel like Spyro 2 is going to turn its head here as well.
Yeah, I honestly was shocked. The original Spyro the Dragon at number 8.
And this is pre-DualShock, so this is a D-pad controlled Spyro.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
I mean, still perfectly playable.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, going to D-pad is like, it felt like, sure, that was how you do it. In fact, I resisted the DualShock or the analog stick for a while. It felt too weird, too loose.
There's a lot of charm in the first Spyro, though. You can argue Spyro 2's better, but I think Spyro 1 has this just this vibe that no other one really matches. The levels, I think, are some of the best. They're just so endearing. When I went back to play the is it Reignited trilogy?
Yes.
this was my favorite one to revisit. I prefer Spyro 2 on the original PlayStation, but Spyro 1 was my favorite to go back to.
Spyro 1 was it's my first 3D platformer.
Really nice.
I played Mario 64 at demo kiosks, but I couldn't quite wrap my head around it. But then I got the PlayStation, played the Spyro demo. Oh, I really like this. I want this game. And it just kicked off a long-standing love of Insomniac. Oh, Insomniac made this game? Yes, I am playing this game. PS1 is when I learned brand loyalty or developer loyalty.
Both Insomniac and Naughty Dog found their footing on the PlayStation.
Yeah,
right.
Very much so. And
I played some of the original Spyro via the Reignited trilogy and really enjoyed what I played. I've always meant to go back and play 2 and 3 as well. And I will at some point. I know all 3 are platformers I would, most likely love based on how much I enjoyed playing the first one.
Spyro 1 is more open collectathon.
Yeah.
Spyro 2 and 3 have more focus. Spyro 2 introduces like sort of mission type aspects to a lot of levels to give it a little bit more story for vehicles for humor. Spyro 3 basically had the same thing except with more playable characters and mini games. Yeah. So it's an interesting one. It's also infamous because of treetops.
Oh, really?
I did get stuck on as a kid. I couldn't figure out treetops. That was brutal. But then in Reignited trilogy, I was like, oh yeah, I got this. There's nothing. All right. Well, John, Ash, what is number 7?
Okay. I know Final Fantasy 7 and 9 are going to be on here.
Right.
But with 9, many will tell you it's better, but I don't feel the quantity of people will tell you that. So there'll be a lot of people voting for it as number 1, but how many of them are there? And so I think that might cause it to be lower than you'd think. So I'm going to go here with Final Fantasy 9.
All right.
I think I agree with your assessment of 9 in terms of how many people will actually put it at number 1, John, but I still think it's going to make it higher than this. I'm going to guess a game that I never personally got into this series, but I know how immensely popular it was, so I'm going to go for it. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2.
Oh, that is a good choice. That is a good choice.
Yeah.
All right.
Once again, both of you are incorrect.
Okay.
I'll be shocked if you guys get anything, from 10 to 6, to be honest. But just because it's just such a wide breadth until we start really focusing in. At number 7, with just a little less than 100 points above Spyro the Dragon, Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back.
I thought that would be so much higher. That is probably the favorite one. Crash 3 might get above it. I don't know, but Crash 2 is definitely my favorite one. Like, what I love about Crash 2 is you get like the whole hub where you can sort of select which level you want. So it doesn't have to be like do all the grass worlds. It's just like you can do the grass world or the polar bear snow world. There's a lot of variety in this one. And I think it's way better than Crash 1. If Crash 1 scores ahead of this, then that is solely on its popularity. But Crash 2 is so far above Crash 1.
It's so funny. I played the Crash series in the opposite order. I played 3 first, then 2, then 1. And going back to 2 is like, this is still really good. Like it didn't feel like a loss in quality. I did feel that when I went to Crash 1, but with Crash 2, it was still just a ton of fun going through these levels, breaking all these boxes. It's amazing how they take that whole got to break all the boxes thing to you, figure out the best way to break these boxes.
Yeah.
And you didn't get the personality with this. You got the Cortex coming in and taunting you, or the various bosses, or how Crash dies is always a little different.
So many different animations for it, yeah. And the soundtrack's great too. The first Crash, I think the opening song is great, but after that it's just kind of it's fine. Crash 2 has a lot of bangers in there though.
He really does.
I have a weird relationship with Crash. I played some of the first game as a kid and kind of bounced off of it, which is why I never went back for any of the sequels, even though I hear you both saying that 2 is so much better than 1. But something about, and I know we were talking about this before we started, something about Crash just annoys me, irritates me. I know he's supposed to be annoying, but there are other mascot characters who are kind of annoying, but endearingly so. Crash just never crossed that endearing
You've got to
threshold.
embrace him. Just
Whatever.
get a
Yeah.
pair of jorts, take your
Yeah.
top off, and play Crash.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think any. I think you just turned everyone's brain into mush who's watching or listening to this, because nobody wants to imagine that visual, including myself. Including myself.
Yeah. I mean, I get that, but I feel like you being turned away by Crash 1 is like, give Crash 2 a try. I think it will
Right.
turn you around a bit more.
I should.
'cause
Okay. Okay.
It's more forgiving. It's much more polished. It really is a classic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hard to deny that. So, yeah, Crash Bandicoot 2 at number 7. However, Ash, John, what is the number 6 game of the top game of PS1?
This is super tough now. Ash said Tekken 3 earlier, and I have a feeling it's going to be here, but I don't want to say the same game again. I also have a feeling Silent Hill is going to make it here. But
I hope it does.
there's so many other games that can make it into a top, like, is it top 6 now?
Yeah.
'Cause I know Resident Evil 1 or 2 should probably make it as well, but I think Resident Evils are better than Silent Hill on PlayStation. Debatable on PlayStation 2. But I think Silent Hill, this is a good spot for it.
See, I had given up on Silent Hill making it in. I really want it to, because it's personally in my top 10. Guess I'll go with. Oh, this is so hard.
Tekken 3 was
guess
a really
I'll-
good guess, and this might be a good spot for it, but I don't know.
You know,
It's fun having you guys squirm.
I know. I doubt this is. Well, I can't tell how. No, that's not going to make it. You know what? I'm going to go with.
Follow your heart. Mega Man Legends.
I was actually going to say a Mega Man game, but not that one. You know what? Screw it. Let's just go for it. And okay, Mega Man X4. It's one of the best Mega Man X games. It should be in the top 10. That's my guess.
So, Ash, you have the right publisher. John,
okay.
You should have gone with your gut. At number 6, Resident Evil 2.
Oh,
Nice.
okay.
With 1,316 points. A little over 100 points above Crash 2.
Still wonderful. If people have played the remake and they think they've played Resident Evil 2, then you haven't played this one. This is a completely different game. Nothing in common, really.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Once you can get past the tank controls, which I think you can with a little bit of adjustment, you have one of the best games ever made here. I saw someone the other day arguing whether Resident Evil 1 or 2 is better, because everyone sort of gravitates to 2 now, but 1 is a really, really different game. And I think that mansion setting makes it feel more like a Metroid game than any other Resident Evil. And so I do wonder if maybe that is more iconic than 2, and maybe the first one can still show up. I don't know, but I am happy that 2 made it here.
So funny story about 2. I was given 2 games early on when I got my PlayStation 1 by a good friend. He gave me Final Fantasy 7 and he gave me Resident Evil 2. I
That's a
clicked
good friend.
immediately with
That's
Final
a-
Fantasy 7. He just had me borrow it. But Resident Evil 2, I started up the Leon campaign. Got through that opening cutscene. It's like, oh, this is creepy. This is. I don't know about this. Like, I'm actually kind of scared because I was not used to horror games at the time. And I get to but I'm invested. Get past the opening cutscene where you're surrounded by zombies. Bang, 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 bang. Not understanding what I need to do. Get swarmed by zombies. Die immediately.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Maybe I chose the wrong character. Switch to clear. Same exact thing happens. I'm like, I think I'm good. So I never played beyond that point. And Resident Evil 2, I never made it to the police station.
Man,
That's how badly I played.
That's still such an iconic framing too, when you get to the police station and the camera pans down, or when you see the liquor in the window.
This game is why I want a Resident Evil Classics collection.
Yes.
I know it's
Yeah, that'd be
available
cool.
on Good Old Games. I'm considering it, but I need to fix that shame. But yeah.
I hope that happens. I really do. You've got to be in the right mindset to enjoy classic Resident Evil. You've got to hold on to your ammo. You've got to avoid zombies. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just run, and I think that's what you got to do at the start. Just run past everybody. But if you don't know that, then you're not going to get the game at all.
I will say that the door, the window break moment in the original Resident Evil is like an all-time PS1 gaming moment. For me, it definitely scared the hell out of me. My issue with RE2, obviously, I know it's an excellent game, and I played some of it. And this was kind of an issue with me for Resident Evil until some of the more modern ones was I saw those giant spiders in the first one, and that was it for me. And I was like, I can't do this again because, as you all know, I'm like hardcore arachnophobic. And you got those giant low poly tarantula looking spiders.
Spiders in RE2? I don't think
I never played far enough to find out because I was I just cannot do giant spiders in games. So I never really got that far into 2.
I can't remember them being in 2. They might be. Live audience.
Okay. They might be, but off the top of my head, they don't stand out.
Oh, they are.
As an enemy there.
They are. Okay. See, good thing I didn't play further in then because, like you, Derek, I only really played the beginning because as much as I enjoy horror, the one thing I cannot do is spiders, which is why I was more of a Silent Hill guy.
That's right. There are spiders in the sewers. They're right.
Oh,
right.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes
sense.
Yep,
I'm good. I'm good on that.
You really got to praise the ambition of this game, though, and the replayability of it. There's like so many extra modes, and the fact that you can start with Leon and like have Leon A, Claire B, Claire A.
That's the
Leon
coolest part,
B.
and the remake doesn't really do that. Like you can do different playthroughs, but they don't really merge into each other. Like there's stuff you can do in Leon A that will affect Claire B, and it's not really like that in remake. It feels really ambitious though on PS1.
Oh, it absolutely was.
Yeah.
Again, it's like, man, Final Fantasy VII 3 discs, Resident Evil 2 discs. Is anything on one disc on this system?
And they somehow squeezed it onto N64 in one cartridge, and I don't know how they did it.
I have no idea. That's some magic right there. But yeah, it's a classic that I absolutely want to go back to. Capcom, please, Resident Evil Classics Collection.
Do it.
That's all I asked for. 1, 2, and 3. All right, we've reached the top 5. So, Ash and John, what is the number 5 game on the PS1?
This is where it gets really difficult. Okay. Let's go. You go first.
Well, I'm going to be sad if this doesn't make it, but I think we've already got to the point where it probably isn't going to make it. But this is, I think, my last chance to guess a Mega Man game for this list. So I'm just going to go for it. I really hope Mega Man Legends made it. So let's just go with Mega Man Legends and hope for the best.
I will go with I'm gonna keep going with Resident Evil. I'm gonna say the first Resident Evil.
All right, both going with Capcom once again.
Yeah,
it is not Capcom.
Oh, we're both
at number 5. Crash Bandicoot Warped with 1,381 points, just 70 points above, 65 points above Resident Evil 2. So yeah, Crash made it on here twice so far.
I'm expecting the same for Spyro. But makes sense.
Interesting.
Crash 3 is super ambitious too. A lot more moves. The theme is cool too. Like the first 2 Crash games were like, you go through these sort of very normal platformy areas. Whereas Crash 3 takes you through time. Like you go back to a medieval area and all that.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a standout of the 3.
It feels like the hub world feels less claustrophobic too, because you can still choose any level you want, but rather than a circular area that you go through, you have like this sort of castle-like thing that you go off into different branches, and you have the sheer variety. This time around, you got the airplane levels, the
bike,
You got the jet ski, not the water ski levels to do that. You got Coco in the game. I don't think she was playable though. In this
she was playable, right? No, maybe not.
I can't remember.
I feel like she was. I remember riding on a tiger as her.
Oh yeah. So you have those, and you got you got all the various time themes going on.
Yeah.
It was just a great variety, and again, this is where I started. This is my favorite Crash game.
Yeah.
These results are turning out to be so interesting. I mean, I knew they were going to be interesting no matter what, but we're at the top 4 now, and we've seen no Final Fantasy, no Metal Gear, no Castlevania.
I think you just named the top 4.
No, maybe I'm not saying we're running out of room for all these great games, though. Is just what's so interesting to me. But obviously, this list has already been made up of so many amazing games. So clearly, some of the all-time greats are going to be left out of the top 4
for sure,
and that's interesting.
Yeah, but Yeah. So you prefer 2 to 3, John?
I do
Because
prefer 2
I've
to 3.
heard that before. Because 2 is a bit more pure than 3. 3 is like full of the gimmicks. Like you got the airplane stuff as well. I just remembered.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Three's a fantastic game as well. I think 2 is a little stronger than level design, but 3's got a lot more unique ideas. But yeah, I like viewing them as just one complete whole rather than one's just definitively, replaces the other. They're both great.
yeah, for sure. All right, at number 4, what is our top 4 game on the PlayStation 1?
I think this is Final Fantasy 9. Maybe it manages to get higher, but it's not touching 7 and Metal Gear and Symphony of the Night. I'm pretty sure it doesn't.
See, that was going to be my original guess, and it still kind of is. I'm waffling between FF9 and Castlevania Symphony of the Night. But I know it wouldn't be fun for us both to guess the same thing. So
Yeah.
you called FF9, so just by definition, I'll go with the other part of my gut that says it's either that or Symphony of the Night. So
I will
I'll
be
lock in.
surprised if Symphony isn't top 3, but I don't know. I don't know where the reputation's gone over the years, to be honest.
It's just hard because I know people love FF9 as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I could honestly, I could see it being both. My heart says FF9, but the other part of my heart says Castlevania. So, like I said, it's not fun to guess the same thing. So you already said FF9. I'll lock in Symphony of the Night, and we'll see where the chips fall.
You should have gone with your heart, Ash. At number 4, Final Fantasy 9.
Makes sense. And people will argue.
By the way, it was not even close between the jump from 5 to the top 4. Again, Crash Bandicoot warped almost 1,400. Final Fantasy 9, 2,200 points.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
A lot of people would tell you this is better than 7, and they're not wrong. I don't know where my opinion changes all the time, but 9 is incredible. It is a top 1 for a lot of people, and it is just an amazing game. And Square were crazy in this era. They gave you just an industry-defining RPG with 7, and then they did it again the next year, and again the next year, and then they were doing all these other things like Chrono Cross, and they wouldn't stop. They were unstoppable in the PS1 era. And it's hard to believe. Like now we have to wait 7 years to get a mainline Final Fantasy, but they were just pumping them out, and the quality was not being lost. 9 kind of goes back to that sort of medievally style, but it still has that sort of magical feeling that 6 and 7 delved into. And there's nothing else like 9. And it's so brisk. It's just constantly moving. The characters are all delightful. It is just wonderful.
I adore Final Fantasy IX, and as you were saying, John, it speaks so much to the quality of Square in those days that it only made it to number 4. And not even counting other games that at this point I'm sure aren't going to make it, like Parasite Eve, Brave Fencer Musashi, Chrono Cross. Like their output in the PS1 days was insane, and so many of their games were just absolutely top tier. And I love 7, 8, and 9 all in their own ways, but gun to my head, of the 3, 9 is my favorite. I would personally rank 9 as my favorite PS1 Final Fantasy.
One of the best video game lyrical songs ever as well.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Yes. Melodies of Life is still the English version specifically is still probably my favorite FF vocal theme. It's so gorgeous.
Yeah.
With Final Fantasy 9, it really was a magical experience because at this point I dabbled with Final Fantasy Anthology and Chronicles to see those older games, so to see that represented in the PS1 era, 3D graphics and whatnot was just really magical for me to see that so modernized. And then I loved that because I was a hoarder. I didn't like to sell my weapons at all. So the fact that each weapon gave an ability for your characters, like, yes, let me buy them all so I can get all these abilities for my characters and decide what I want there. The having 4 people in your party. And as John said, just the characters themselves. That said, I do understand some of the weaknesses of 9, despite 9 ostensibly being my favorite. Loading into battle does take a while.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Your party is almost certainly going to be Zidane, Garnet, Steiner, Vivi. Those are just they work better. Like I want to use Freya,
or
mainly just Freya. I don't really care. I tried Aiko for a little bit, but her summons just did not compare to Garnet. So you stick with Garnet. So that's also a bit of a weakness when it comes to it. And some of the mini games aren't as fun, but a lot of people say it's like your favorite games are the ones that have flaws that you can just overlook.
Absolutely.
And I think 9 is certainly one of those games where you
Yeah.
can just like, yeah, I know it has issues, but I
Yeah.
still love it because the things it does, well, it does really well. Some of the most gorgeous cutscenes on the PS1. Bahamut versus Alexander.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. Garnet's escape sequence where Steiner thinks she's jumping off a roof and just the sparks flying.
expression,
Will always
Yeah.
stick in my head.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
it's
cartoony
everything to
humor
do with
in
Vivi.
9.
It's visually stunning. Like I love
Yeah.
I love 3D on pre-rendered backgrounds, and Bravely Default did this very well as well. Then you compare 7 and 9 model wise. Like 7 is like these little Lego guys, and 9 is like these are actual people now.
Yeah,
It ran with the concept that 7 was running for visually, and it's just beautiful.
I think the only game visually that might surpass FF9 for me in the PS1 is Chrono Cross, which was truly a gorgeous game, especially with the limited tech they were working with. Before we move on, I do want to shout out really quick. I know obviously FF8 did not make the top 10, but I know it's the awkward middle child, but man, there are things I still do love about that game, and it still to this day has my favorite Uematsu soundtrack ever. 8 is peak
strong.
FF music for me. I love that.
Super strong soundtrack. Better card game than 9. I'll say that right now.
That's true. Yeah, for sure.
But all right, we've reached the top 3.
We know what they are.
I think people generally agree on this, but we'll still go through the idea of it. Number 3, John and Ash. What is number 3?
This is Symphony of the Night.
I mean, I guess I'm just gonna. I don't even know if it really is a rule, but I was gonna guess FF9 last time. John said it first, but then there's Castlevania. I was gonna guess that. Yeah,
it's the first time. I think go with what you feel. It doesn't matter. You don't. Have
I think it's Symphony of the Night.
At number 3, yes, it is Castlevania Symphony of the Night with 2,692 points, almost 500 points above Final Fantasy IX. And can you blame them? It's Symphony of the Night.
No.
It is a friggin' classic. The progenitor of, arguably, it's like this is the point where Metroidvanias really take off.
Yeah.
Before, like, Metroid, of course, created the idea, but this is where it's like, oh, we can go beyond this and what we can do. And there's so much to discover in Symphony of the Night. It's so easy flowing. This was my introduction to Castlevania in general. It is just, it's not my favorite Castlevania anymore, but it is a damn good one.
I still love playing this on PS1 as well. Like they with the PSP version, which is also the PS4 version, they fixed the localization a bit. I liked it as it was. I think you change it up, and it's just not as iconic. No, but it is just such a striking game. And I remember reading these magazine excerpts from that time, and a lot of people were just dismissing it because it's a 2D game. And then you look at it now, and it's just like the most revered PlayStation game of them all. Like that doesn't matter.
Back in the day, everybody was like, "Look at Castlevania 64. This looks amazing."
Yeah.
What the heck is this Symphony of the Night crap? This looks like junk. Because it was the 3D bias. 2D games were so put upon.
Yeah.
2D games were so out of vogue then. It was ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this game is, I mean, this speaks for itself. Everyone knows how incredible Symphony of the Night is. It deserves its top 3 placement. Unbelievable soundtrack. Just part of the pleasure of that game for me was discovering each new area just to hear what kind of music I'd get, because the soundtrack is so diverse. There's so many different genres of music covered in Symphony of the Night soundtrack. And as you said, the iconic localization, John, which I agree, they didn't need to change what wasn't broken. Give me that original voice track anytime, any day of the week. And this was not my introduction to Castlevania. I started with the original NES and then Castlevania 4, but this was what got me into Castlevania. I've always been way more into the Igavanias more than the classic Vanias. So this was what made me a fan as compared to the games prior to it.
Speaking of the soundtrack, do you guys remember that you could take the PS1 disc, put it in your CD player, and actually get some of the soundtrack playing?
Oh yeah.
And there would be like
anymore.
there was also like a unique clip where Alucard's voice actor would speak in character and say, this is a PlayStation game disc. They're not meant to be used for whatever, but basically telling you're not supposed to put the disc in a regular CD player. But they actually recorded something specifically for people who did that.
It's always cool when they do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back to the soundtrack a second. Like, what's great about Symphony of the Night is it's just this intertwined world that you just sort of walk between areas and you're there. And the soundtrack is just such a great wayfinder tool. Like, you just walk into an area and you recognize instantly where you are from hearing the first few notes of the soundtracks. It's all just instantly recognizable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's as Ken was saying in live audience as well, the inverted castle is nuts. Like, there's just so much to this game. Like, you finish it and you think that's it, and then there's way more.
You get that
Yeah.
secret ending. You have to, because you have to work for it. You won't get it right away. You have to find
Right.
certain stuff, and you're like, just by exploring and getting the clues there is a nice bit of discovery. The other just amazing thing about Symphony, especially me having done that marathon where I played all the games in order, the callbacks feel so much more like, you don't, like me playing it the first time. I didn't play any of the other Castlevanias,
Right.
so I didn't understand a lot of those callbacks, but seeing how Richter plays, how when Alucard, when Maria asks about a Belmont, he thinks to Trevor, and it's the NES graphics. The
So cool.
fight against the other playable characters of Castlevania 3 in their other original sprites, I think, if my memory serves. Really cool callback stuff. And then the fact that they have iconic monsters as regular monsters or sort of smaller bosses. Like, here's Slagra again from Castlevania 4. Fight him. Hey, you want a super secret boss? We're going to take the final boss of Kid Dracula. Here you go. It would make him more serious this time around. But also just like the crazy Legion as a boss.
Legion was so cool.
Was the first time seeing
boss
that.
stands out in my mind a lot. I was actually just thinking about Legion. So cool.
Yeah.
And also just the animation, especially for Alucard himself, like one of my favorite sprites ever. Just the way he moves, his double jump is still one of the coolest double jumps of all time. Like with the wing that comes out, like he's just animated, one of the most beautifully animated character sprites of all time.
Yeah.
We were saying how Square were on a roll in this era, as were Capcom. Konami, though, like, Silent Hill didn't make the list, but crazy. Symphony of the Night, outstanding. Suikoden, outstanding. And I think we're about to get to it. Metal Gear Solid, also outstanding.
Yep.
All these Japanese publishers were just on their A game on the PlayStation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, seriously. So yeah, if you have not played Symphony, find a way to play it. It is so good. Hopefully it comes to the Switch at some point. I know that has that deal for the Castlevania Requiem collection.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. But I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So, all right. Number 2. I think you guys both know it, but we're still going to go through the whole rigmarole.
There's a non 0% chance that Metal Gear gets number 1. Like, it's not impossible. But the way you're talking, I think.
Yeah.
You guys have been saying it, so it's like, do I keep a straight face or I just go with it?
So it's Metal Gear at number 2.
We agree. It's Metal Gear Solid for sure.
Yeah. Here's the shocking part about it. So Symphony of the Night, I said, had 2,692 points. Metal Gear Solid had 2,808. It almost lost to Symphony of the Night. Granted, 106 points away, but that's damn close.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
I think it's right, though. I think Metal Gear, at least in my opinion, is a step above Symphony, just a little bit.
Production-wise, ambition-wise, yeah. There was nothing like Metal Gear Solid.
No.
Yeah, absolutely nothing.
And there was a lot of attempts to be Metal Gear Solid on the PS1 after that. Nobody could pull it off.
No. Perfect marriage. Sorry, you go ahead, Ash.
Oh, I was just going to say Metal Gear Solid is really striking for me because up to that point, I had never played a Metal Gear game, didn't really have any frame of reference for the series. I never played any of the originals, didn't care about it. But then I kept hearing about MGS in all these different game magazines. And I'm like, well, I feel like if everybody loves it this much, I have to try it. And instantly, I had no history for this character, Snake, anything in his world, anything in his story. And I was pulled into that game utterly and immediately, and I could not put it down until I finished it. The story was just so gripping, and the codec calls and all the twists and turns. And that game made me a lifelong fan of Metal Gear Solid.
I mean, what's amazing about it too is it's very story heavy. There's a lot of cutscenes, but it's also very much a video game. It's about interactivity, and so you have parts of the game like like when you want to find Meryl, and to get the the codec code, you go look at the actual back of the box of the game. That's something you couldn't do in a movie. Or Psycho Mantis moving the DualShock with his mind by
So
making it
good.
vibrate.
You like to play Castlevania.
Oh, good.
Yeah, there's just so much in here that that storytelling is enhanced because it is a video game. And that's something that I don't think a lot of developers got when they were trying to imitate Metal Gear. They're just trying to do like story heavy games, and that's not what this was.
Right.
There's always
Even
been that sort of tongue-in-cheek quality to Metal Gear.
Yeah.
even
That
tiny little details that make it a very video game, like the fact that if you equip the cigarettes, Snake loses health little by little. Just little details
which,
like that.
which was
that-
also back
yeah.
in the original Metal Gear, which is impressive. Like
Yeah.
Right.
it's crazy now, but it was actually in the original. And
Yeah.
I appreciate that the manual of Metal Gear Solid did have recaps of what happened in Metal Gear 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could sort of catch up on the stories. Like, man, this always feels like the story's in progress.
Mm.
Because once again, I first experienced this through the demo, which is such a small sliver of what the game actually is. You barely get a taste of it, but it's still interesting enough that first, like, it's enough to get you the idea of, I need to sneak around these guys.
Mm.
And this is how I play. It's great for giving a sort of tutorial for you before you jump into the full game. Then you're sort of ready for it, and you have the idea from it. And then I eventually borrowed it from a friend, and just again blown away at the storytelling, the way the different ways that you got stuff like the torture sequence and which ending you're gonna get, and the introduction of Otacon.
Yeah. There's so much in here, like knocking on a wall to hear which part of it's hollow, which you can blow up.
Yeah.
Or equipping cigarettes to reveal hidden lasers. Or getting the POW keys and having to go back to a frozen area to freeze it, and then find a hot area to change its quality there. Like it's full of ingenious stuff.
Yeah.
This very well could have been the best PlayStation game, but obviously one game beats it.
The story honestly really did feel like peeling back the layers of an onion. It felt like a true like conspiracy that you were uncovering, and like the Master Miller reveal. I remember getting goosebumps when you see the face change in the Kodak call, and the music changes, and you just get goosebumps. Like, what is going on here? There were so many genuinely surprising and just unnerving plot twists in that game.
And every
good
single
use of
boss,
stock footage too.
yes,
Mhm.
every single boss is iconic too. Every single one of them. They build them up fantastically as a character, and then the actual fights are all amazing. Like the Sniper Wolf fight is so good, and they always try and like redo them in sequels. Like there's another sniper fight in Metal Gear Solid 3, which is also great, and then Metal Gear Solid 4 takes you back to Shadow Moses, and you go through all those parts again, and it just hits so hard.
Yep.
But yeah, it's wonderful. Like it's one of those games that if you haven't played it, you've got to do it before you die. Like that is
Yes. Absolutely.
Very much a bucket list game.
Yeah.
And honestly, the thing I came out of this the most was like, man, Revolver Ocelot is cool. Like he ended up being my favorite character, especially with that little like sequel tease at the end. It's like whatever I forget the exact line, but just ending with whatever, when according all to plan, Mr. President.
Mr. President. Yeah.
This is what
So
started the MCU post credit scene.
Right. And there's so many lines. I mean, this is like one of the absolute most quotable games of all time, next to like Star Fox 64 for me. There's just so many lines like, I love the smell of reloading during a battle. Like that stuff will stay with me to the day I die. I'll never forget stuff like that. It's so good.
It's amazing. Just utterly gripping. And honestly, I hope it holds up for people going back to it. I have to assume it does, just because you look at the graphics now and you have their squinty eyes and like barely a face and just going bobbing their head. But that was still impressive. The fact that it was fully voice acted, it really stepped up the presentation aspect of it.
Yeah. And you know what? The Twin Snakes remake gets a lot of crap, but I really very much enjoyed it. And if people can't get over the PS1 era visuals, I would at least suggest them giving it a try on GameCube, just because it's still the same excellent game. And
I'm
personally,
quite curious how that's going to do when we get to the game.
It'll be interesting. It gives you like Metal Gear Solid 2 gameplay mechanics. You can go in first person, properly aim.
Yeah.
I think the only hangout with Twin Snakes is all that Matrix-inspired slow-mo stuff and lots of
Like
diving.
jumping on top of
I
the
think it's
missile.
fun, though.
Yeah.
I think it's
I think
super
it's fun. I like it.
I've never
yeah.
played it, so I don't know. I've heard about it, but I've never sat down and played the whole thing. I wish I had gotten it, but I just didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's our number 2 game on the PlayStation 1. Guys, what is number 1 for the PlayStation 1? The best
Team
game.
Racing.
I wonder. Obviously, it's Mega Man Legends. No, I wish. Well,
wrap it up.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, come on. It's Final Fantasy
Final
VII.
Fantasy 8, no, 7.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
No other
I'm
game
curious
is gonna
how
make
much it won by.
Yeah, how much?
So Metal Gear Solid, once again, at 2,800 points. Final Fantasy 7, 3,264 points.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just too iconic.
Nothing was ever close. It was. It is the PlayStation game. Let's be honest. Like, this is what sold people on the PlayStation. Seeing those graphics. This was my first RPG. It's a lot of people's first RPGs, and you might prefer other ones more, but 7 always stands out.
Yeah. 7 is just utterly iconic.
Always moving. It's always on the move. Like, you go to one town, you do your thing there, straight on to the next place. The world is just open to you immediately. Like, once you leave Midgar, you are unleashed into the world. You go around, you get your vehicles, eventually get a ship. But you just go everywhere immediately. This game is always doing something else. There's always a new mini game to do. There's always a new place to see. It's just constantly getting an idea, getting rid of it, and getting a new idea, and it's just so brisk. There's so few RPGs that can ever do that again. And I think going into more evolved visuals with PS2 and then the HD era onwards, we lost that. There's so few games that can do that. We can't do that today. We have to do multiple.
We don't want to do the little
together.
character with the giant cities and all that. We can't have the mismatch that takes you out of the story.
Yeah, but there is a scale here which we just can't have anymore.
Yeah, I mean, this was the game that put JRPGs on the map in the West. I mean, yes, you had games like FF6 and 4 and Chrono Trigger that were, that obviously had their audience and were a big deal on like the Super Nintendo, but JRPGs didn't really break out into the mainstream until FF7 put them there. And this game was just so tremendously influential. And I was there on the ground floor day one with all the release hype, and I remember being part of that. And this game has just stuck. It was such a formative experience for me and has just stuck with me over the years, obviously, like it has with so many other people. And I think one other thing that 7 does so uniquely well that really no other RPG I can think of does in quite the same way. There is a very specific vibe. It's a really dark game, but it's also could be really goofy and weird. And there's kind of a hard edge to it where there's like a lot of the characters and NPCs will swear at you or swear at each other. Yeah. There's a kind of a hard edge to the world of FF7. Sure. There's stuff like Wall Market, but like it's also just goofy as hell when it wants to be, even though in the same breath, it tells a really dark story at the core of it all.
How do you traverse the snowy mountains? We're going to snowboard.
Yeah, right. That's not long after Aerith died.
Yeah.
Every single character in this game has their own arc as well. Like here is Barrett's chunk, here's Tifa's chunk. Everybody gets to explore their narrative. And like there's optional characters that you never have to engage with. Like you never have to get Vincent or Yuffie. But once you do, they have their own stories there as well. And they have their own lines of dialogue, which wouldn't be there if you hadn't got them. And again, that's something that is not done today. You cannot just miss a party member like that.
No. It has to be all lined up and optional, but that's too much work. Why would we not have them in there if it's optional? If we did it, we want the player to experience it, that sort of thing. Coming into this, again, a friend let me borrow his copy. And I was an avid reader back in the day. I just read everything, and I love video games. So to come across a genre of video game that combined the two blew my friggin' mind. And I was just immediately just absorbed into this world, loving the characters and all that. And the great thing about, some people say about Fantasy 7 isn't that complex. You can do some pretty crazy stuff and break the game in a lot of ways thanks to the materia system, but it's also easy to understand. It was that right amount of strategy plus accessibility that really sold the whole concept of it is like, okay, I got the basic idea of here. You can get your basic stuff through that you can manage to do what you need to do. You might miss stuff, but you can get through the game and enjoy it and then maybe play it again in order to see other stuff, which I did do. The game is shockingly replayable.
Oh yeah,
It
for
is.
sure.
Yeah.
And it's not that long either. If you're just going for the
No.
beaten path, you can finish this in under 30 hours.
Yeah.
And as you guys are saying, this was also back during an era where games were not afraid to have things that you could miss, have missables. Almost every summon materia was missable because you weren't able to backtrack to certain rooms or
Yep.
areas.
I
where they were
vividly
in,
remember missing Ramu in the Chocobo racing
Yeah,
area.
right. And speaking of Chocobo racing, talk about all the cool ass mini games
So
in this
many.
game, like Chocobo racing and snowboarding and all the stuff at the Gold Saucer, which some people would say for better and worse, maybe Rebirth replicated to a T in terms of all the wacky little mini games there are in this game. But 7 just is it is a wonderful experience. And even if it isn't necessarily mechanically the best, like we were saying, John, you know, we would maybe like technically rank 9 above it. 7 has just this heart that just can't, this vibe that cannot be replicated, and by any other game. To say nothing of its massive, obviously, impact and iconic soundtrack. I mean, that soundtrack lives rent free in everyone's heads to this day.
Yeah. Caitlin was saying if only it had a better modern port, and I think that's something very true about Final Fantasy VII's visuals. Is when you make the models HD, they just don't jive with the backgrounds anymore. When you play this on a CRT, on an original PlayStation, I think it's still utterly gorgeous. The way that these backgrounds animate, they're still some of the most beautiful things put in a game. The models, they definitely got beaten by 9, but those backgrounds are still amazing.
Oh yeah.
I also think it's
immaculate.
I also think it's unfortunately somewhat held back still, and it wasn't back in its day as well, by an unfortunately weak localization. And this was common in those times.
Yeah.
But even the modern port, it fixed some of the obvious stuff like this guy are sick.
Yeah.
But like the overall
Didn't need
localization
fixing.
is still kind of It needs
I
like
would-
a fresh pass.
I would buy it again if they like just came in and said we got a brand new localization,
Yeah.
and I would get it in a heartbeat. You know what? Sweeten the deal even more. Have the new voice actors voice all the lines too.
That'd be cool.
That
All
would
the
be
important
that
ones.
would be so
I
cool.
would buy that game in a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat.
So
Definitely.
Yeah, it's awesome too how, like, I think with Resident Evil, you see a lot of people say the remakes have replaced the originals, which is wrong. But
That's
with,
not true.
with Final Fantasy
It
VII
really hasn't.
Remake, though, that is simply not the case. The remakes are sequels, pretty much. They're different games.
Yeah.
You kind of, it's best that you play the original to better appreciate the remakes.
Yeah.
very much so.
Completely agree.
Yeah, I suspected this was going to be number 1. It wasn't that much of a surprise, but you can't argue with it. I
No.
mean, it is just that solid. So yeah, there is our top 10. But you know, much like the Super Nintendo, there's a lot of great games on this system. So I want to break down at least the top 50 and maybe some other ones that sort of stood out. So let's go to let's check out 11 to 20.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm number 11, just missing out the top 10 by 50 points. Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage, which is my favorite Spyro. I was like,
Okay.
I was honestly shocked to see the original beating out the sequel.
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe it. Number 12, Tekken 3. with
I
800.
really
Oh.
thought that'd make the top 10.
I thought too.
Wow.
It didn't quite. That's the weird thing is like we got platformers and RPGs and then Metal Gear and Resident Evil 2. It's like it's very odd how that ended up that way. But I guess this was sort of the last major era of the platformer. But yeah, Tekken 3, massively selling system. Game put Tekken on the map.
Absolutely.
Caitlin, just to address your question about the no fighting game on the top 10, not in the PS1. The only fighting game that has made the top 10 so far is Virtua Fighter 2 across all systems.
Soul Calibur is going to make it on the Dreamcast top 10.
Oh, there's
no doubt in
yeah.
my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Soul Calibur 2 might even make it on the GameCube. Like
Probably.
fighting games will start to show up.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tekken 3 only beat number 13 by 7 points.
Whoa.
At
wow.
number 13, Mega Man X4.
Wow. Okay. Actually made it higher than I thought it would.
I really
Okay.
thought more people would gravitate to Legends.
I did
I
too.
would too, but X4 is excellent and arguably
It's
might
really
be better
good.
than X in some respects.
That's the one that like most Mega Man X fans, it's either you love X is your favorite or X4. There's very little in between there. It's either X or X4. I thought Legends would be higher though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. At number 14, only about 50 points behind that, Crash Team Racing.
Deserves it.
Okay.
It's arguably
excellent kart racer.
better than Mario Kart in this era.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And it had a decent story mode. In fact, I'd say the story mode is better than Diddy Kong, because Diddy Kong's too damn frustrating. Crash Team Racing at least felt balanced. So.
Right. Whizpig. I still have nightmares of fighting Whizpig.
Don't even tell me. But Crash Team Racing, 11 points ahead of number 15. Final Fantasy Tactics at number 15.
I was wondering where Tactics was going to land. Okay.
So pretty solid all around. About 50 points behind that at number 16. This is where Silent Hill comes in.
Oh,
That is quite surprising. I guess Silent Hill 2 is where it really took off, though. But the first one's great.
Yeah.
I love the first game so much.
I expect Silent Hill.
2 and 3
it's
are
gonna be tough.
2 and 3
It's gonna
will
be
be
tough
the PlayStation
competition
2
on
top
PS2,
10.
but
Yeah.
They have to be. They
You'd
have to be.
think
If they're
they have to
not, I
be.
riot.
But PS2 is again another strong set of
Yeah,
games.
It
it's
is.
true. It's true. I don't know.
I don't know if there's an objectively everybody can kind of point to FF7, Metal Gear Solid, and Symphony of the Night as top 3 for PS1. I don't know if there's an apparent top 3 for the PS2 though. Not in the same way.
Shadow of the Colossus, Metal Gear Solid 3.
Maybe. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't know.
Final Fantasy 10.
Final Fantasy 10.
Maybe.
I don't know.
You're right. There's too much.
There's too
Yeah.
much.
Kingdom
It's all over the
Hearts.
place.
I don't think
Kingdom Hearts.
I don't think Kingdom Hearts
2.
will be top 3.
Kingdom Hearts 2
though.
might, though.
I don't
Not
know.
1, I agree.
But anyway, PS1.
Man, yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
PS1, we're still there. Here's the crazy thing. Silent Hill beat number 17 by 1 point.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Spyro Year of the Dragon.
All right.
All right.
So that's Spyro 3. So crazy how close that was. Spyro itself beat number 18 by 60 points. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2.
You called that one earlier.
Yep.
At number 19, only 8 points behind, appropriately enough, Final Fantasy 8.
Oh, okay.
It's here.
Number 19.
It turned up.
Yep,
There it
at
is.
Number 19. And then at number 20 with 562 points, about 50-ish behind Final Fantasy 8, Mega Man Legends.
Okay.
Oh, at least it made the top 20. That's
It
nice.
made the top 20. I was happy it made the top 20. I did not expect it to hit the top 10,
Yeah.
but I was
Right.
happy to see it hit top 20.
Still a few games I'm holding out for here. No Suikoden 2 yet. I thought that would maybe be a top 20.
Yeah. All right, I'll go a little bit quicker on the next set. So 21 to 30s. At 21, Klonoa Door to Phantomio.
Nice. Yeah.
At 22, Klonoa beat out the original Crash Bandicoot by
Wow.
1 point.
That's actually shocking. That is
It
actually
really
shocking.
is.
That surprises me, but
really
wahoo.
is.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. Number 23, only 12 points behind Crash Bandicoot, Chrono Cross.
Okay.
Okay.
Put a decent
Should have
showing.
been higher, but I'll take 23.
Yeah. At number 24, the original Resident Evil,
Okay.
Mm.
449 points.
Wow, Chrono Cross over the original Resident Evil.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I'm cool with it.
I think once again it was recently Chrono Cross got the
Yeah,
re-release. Resident
Yeah,
Evil
that's
original
true.
has not. It's not as that widely available thanks
Yeah.
to PC. So I think also, as Caitlin says, Resident Evil Remake will put in a pretty good showing on GameCube.
It will. It will.
Mhm. Yeah.
Number 25, Parasite Eve.
Nice.
Pretty good
Should have been
showing there.
higher.
Yeah, that should have
Number 26, Suikoden 2.
Yep.
Okay.
So it did get the top 30. Only about 7 points, excuse me, behind Suikoden 2, Parappa the Rapper.
Nice.
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 So
Love
it
my
did
boy
pretty
Parappa.
good showing.
Let's get on jamming in the top 32.
30 points behind that, the original Tomb Raider. I was shocked to see the
Huh.
original Tomb Raider just completely outperform 2.
Most iconic, I guess. It's not better than 2 though.
No, it isn't. It just people, I guess, know it better. They just put that. But as we saw this weekend, and people put the sequel. So
Is Caitlin saying Parappa sucks?
He is. I will turn this car around, Caitlin.
oh my god,
6 amazing songs. How dare you?
I've not played it to be honest, though. I don't know. At number 29, Ridge Racer Type 4.
I
Okay.
really thought that would be higher, but
Me too.
Yeah,
Again, it hasn't been re-released.
yeah,
so
that might be it.
Ridge Racer's been out of the public conscious for a while. So
Yeah.
number 30, Mega Man Legends 2.
Okay. Wonder where that was going to land.
Yeah, nice.
Pretty solid. Pretty solid there. All right. 31, Gran Turismo 2. 32, Spider-Man. 33, Resident Evil 3. Excuse me. 34, Vagrant Story.
Cool.
Okay.
35, The Legend of Dragoon.
Nice.
36, Persona 2 Eternal Punishment. Pretty solid showing for that one.
Yeah.
37, Toy Story 2.
Nice.
Very beloved
Yeah.
game
Yeah.
like that. That's like the Aladdin of just this gen.
Yeah.
38, the original Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, only losing out to Toy Story 2 by 1 point.
Oh, wow.
At 39, Grandia.
Nice.
Nice.
Actually tied for 39th place, Grandia and Digimon World.
Cool.
So there's that. This one's very impressive. 41, Persona 2 Innocent Sin. This was never released in the States until the PSP version.
Yeah.
So that's kind of shocking.
It is.
42, Rayman.
Nice.
43, Dragon Quest 7.
Okay.
44, Street Fighter Alpha 3.
Nice.
45, Twisted Metal 2. 46, The Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. 47, Oddworld Abe's Odyssey. 48, Vib Ribbon.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Nice.
Just barely made the top
Got
50.
anything to say about Vib Ribbon, Caitlin? You can have any song you want on that one, not just 6. Any
Called
CD.
out.
Any CD. Nice. She likes it.
49, Breath of Fire 3. And
Okay.
at 50, Wild Arms.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Wow,
I was
okay.
wondering
Yeah.
when Wild Arms was going to show up. Nice.
Yeah.
I always liked Wild Arms 2 more than the first game.
It did put in a decent showing, but Wild Arms just got a bit more. To break out the rest, I'm not going to list out the numbers, but the rest of the games that got above 100 points, Rayman 2, Tomba, Mega Man 8, Star Ocean: The Second Story, Unjammer Lammy, Pac-Man World, Moon Remix RPG Adventure, which was a pretty decent showing there, honestly. The original Suikoden, and finally at 100 points, Brave Fencer Musashi.
I was going to ask you specifically where Musashi landed because I love that game. I'm like, where is it?
Actually,
Okay.
I made a slight mistake. Suikoden did not quite make it to 100 points. It was at 97. Very close, but
Okay.
so Brave Fencer Musashi beat out Suikoden.
Mooberry says they forgot Rayman 2 was on PS1. I mean, it's good on PS1, but Dreamcast is really
It's
the place
not
to go
the
for Rayman
version.
2. Yeah. If Rayman 2 wasn't on the Dreamcast top 10, I think we've got some problems.
Very much so. So yeah, again, and there's still more. Like I look down here at some of the other ones that did pretty well. Lunar is got 87 points. Breath of
I
Fire
was gonna
4
ask about
79
that, yeah.
points. Croc 77 points. Final Fantasy Chronicles 75 points. Alundra 73. Valkyrie Chronicles 74.
Why would anyone vote Final Fantasy Chronicles? Those are like 2 god-awful ports of amazing
Nostalgia
games.
and being introduced to them.
Yeah.
So
I guess,
that's how
yeah, fair.
That's how I was introduced to those two
Yeah,
games.
I remember. That's right. You said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did anyone? No, because you said Rival Schools, right?
I did not say Rival
Oh,
Schools.
you didn't? Oh, okay.
Did
anyone
Rival
put that down?
Schools. There was definitely votes for it. It didn't get
Okay.
a ton. I'd say it got to about 45-ish.
Yeah. Okay.
No
yeah.
Hot Shots Golf 2 or Everybody's Golf 2 where you can golf as Gex?
Hot Shots Golf 2 made the list with about 20-ish points.
Okay.
Dude, there was some stuff in here that I'd never even heard of that people voted for. People voted for there was a single vote for Adabu and Paziral's Secret. I don't know what the hell that is.
Never even heard of that. What?
Blue, Legend of Water.
Right?
Let's see. There was apparently a Discworld game. A few
Huh.
crazy people at their number 10 picks put Dragon Ball GT Final Bout. So
I really want to look at what Blue Legend of Water is. That's the funniest name I've heard all day.
Yeah.
It's an acronym, BLUE.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But yeah, 426 games. There's a lot of representation here, but those are the ones that really stood out in the top of the list. Obviously, there was a lot of other great ones further down the line. Just offhand, Tier Ring Saga never got
Nice.
localized. 56 points.
Cool.
Oh, okay. Did anyone put in Front Mission 3?
Yes, there was
Nice.
Front Mission 3 votes. It got 31 points, so pretty decent.
Nice. Okay, love that game. I looked up this Blue Legend of Water game. It looks wild. the box art's weird. I'm into it though.
As far as Twisted Metal, the original Twisted Metal got 29 points. Twisted Metal Small Brawl got 8 points, and Twisted Metal 2, as I said, was number 45.
Yeah.
I don't think I've even heard of Twisted Metal Small Brawl.
It came out after Black.
Wow. I don't think
okay.
I've ever heard of that. Yeah.
It was like we have this like super dark one, and here's like Twisted Metal Small Brawl where they're, excuse me, my voice, where they're like little toys.
It was like 2002 then that came out?
Something like that. It was pretty late.
That's crazy. Man.
So, and Pac-Man, I think I said Pac-Man World did pretty well.
Did, yeah.
Cool. Any other games that you guys are curious about that I can say offhand? But
I have to know, did anyone put in Mega Man X6? Please tell me no.
They did.
Why? Why would they? Who would do that?
Mega Man X6, excuse me, got 31 points.
Did X5
better to multiple people?
Yes.
That's crazy.
And X5 did do better. X5 got,
at least X5 did a little better.
Let's see here. X5, sorry, it's a huge list. X5 got 94 points, so it almost broke 100.
That means at least 36 different people out there actually believe X6 is a good enough game to make any top list. That is insane to me.
So here's the thing. A lot of people, how that comes down to, it's what they've played.
Sure.
Yeah.
So they have not had I'm so sorry about my voice.
I've been there.
There's a lot of people like, I've only played this amount of games, so of the games I played, here's the order they're in, and that's how you get those type of votes. So it's not that they think that's the best.
It's Mega Man fans who've never played any other franchises.
Right.
So that's their PS1 top 10.
Citano in chat is asking about Legend of Mana, and I admit I'm curious as well.
Solid showing, 61 points.
Okay.
Just beat out Monster Rancher 2, the original Driver, and Harvest Moon, and Tomb Raider 2.
Monster Rancher's a cool choice.
Yeah. That's crazy that Legend of Mana beat out Tomb Raider 2.
Yeah.
That is
That
wild,
can't be right. That cannot be the case.
I don't know how. It did. Oh, Pepsi Man. There were definitely votes for Pepsi Man.
Of course there
42 points.
42.
Hey, at least it beat X6. Okay.
Then there's a game that got called Mort the Chicken. 6 points.
Yeah. Classic.
Did you may have mentioned Lunar 1, but did Lunar 2 make it anywhere?
Lunar 2 got let's see here. 41 points.
I've got 2. Time Crisis and Point Blank.
Ooh, Time Crisis. 30 points.
Okay, Point Blank I think is better than Time Crisis 1.
So here's the thing. I think Time Crisis should have gotten a few more points higher, but a lot of people for some reason thought Time Crisis 2 was on.
See, when it comes to PS2, Time Crisis 2 should be voted for because Time Crisis 2 and 3 are great. They're not PS1 games, but
they're not PS1 games.
I hope people vote for them though. But Point Blank is definitely like the best PS1 light gun game.
Point Blank, not a lot of love there. 9 points for the original, 5 points for 2. So one person each basically remembered them.
Damn it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, it's a pretty wild selection. A lot of games in there. Yeah, it's the PlayStation 1 has games.
It does.
For sure.
It has
that
games.
is for damn sure. What a console.
Yep. Well worth playing. But there is our top 10, and I don't think it's going to get as many votes. Maybe it will. It's hard to say. Next time we're here to talk about our top 10 games, It's the Nintendo 64.
It'll get a lot of votes. A lot of people will
That's gonna
vote,
be
and
fun.
they'll vote for the exact same games.
There'll be a lot of votes with a lot less variety, is what I'm going to guess, because there's just not as much variety on the N64. So
I hate
Oh,
that I
boy.
didn't get in for that one. That's going to be a fun one to do. But so is this one. I'm really glad I got in for PS1.
Yeah, I think it was a good fit. I was glad to have you here as a guest, Ash. So yeah.
I am putting myself in for PS2 right now. Screw it. I still have that document open. I want to be back for PS2, baby.
It's funny. But yeah, that is that for the PlayStation. Thank you all so much. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm pretty sure you absolutely will. I think there's going to be some debate about what made that top 10. But
No
that
doubt.
is just, it does come down to popularity, and it is what it is. But I have plans for I have plans, but here's the thing. I have so many consoles and stuff listed out for this thing. I did some numbers. We're going to be doing this until September, guys.
That's
At the rate we're
wild.
going.
I think in between
So.
these, we need a video just explaining to Caitlin why Parappa the Rapper is actually good. Just sit her down, have a one-to-one.
It's time.
Yeah.
It's time. But yeah, that covers it for our top 10 PS1 games of all time discussion. Thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting us over on Patreon at patreon.com/gvgaming. But even just subscribing to the channel and ringing that bell helps us a ton. So until next time, for the Nintendo 64, bye.
Bye.
Bye.